Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Tae Bak, the host of today's GIC talk. Before we get started, please turn off your cell phone or switch it to silent mode. Thank you. Have you ever heard about pediatric physiotherapy? If not, how about ADHD, autism, Down syndrome? I'm guessing those words might be quite familiar to you, especially to Korean parents, who might already be aware of those terms because they have children of their own. Today, pediatric physiotherapist Janti Vijay Shankar will give a talk titled The Role of Pediatric Physiotherapy in Disability and Rehabilitation. She will let you know what physiotherapy is, and she will also share some ideas to encourage children who suffer from pediatric illness to become more independent. Remember, if you have any questions to ask the speaker, feel free to write them down on a slip of paper. If you did not receive a slip of paper, please raise your hand and one of the GIC volunteers will come around and give you one. Your question will be asked during the Q&A session. Thank you for joining us today, and please welcome Janti Vijay Shankar with a big round of applause.
Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all present here. Let me introduce myself. I'm Jayanti Vijay Shankar. I'm basically a pediatric physiotherapy in India, but right now I'm a housewife. I have a baby, 2.5 years, girl baby, and this GIC talk will be focused upon the various conditions, neurological conditions, genetic disorders prevailing in childhood, and I'll be focusing more on about autism, ADHD, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and muscular dystrophy. Let me tell you one thing, that I'm not going to cover the orthopedic aspects of pediatric physiotherapy. I'm just going to concentrate only on the neurological disabilities and the genetic disorders. And out of this talk, you'll be understanding what really is pediatric physiotherapy and more about disability, rehabilitation, and the role of being a physiotherapist. Okay? And before going into the presentation, I'll be using some technical terms like motor, sensory, coordination, reflex, and balance. I think balance is a self-explanatory word, but motor, what is motor? Motor means movement, okay? Sensory means sensations. So we are all well coordinated in our movements. We can stand erect, we can move freely. Okay, so, but in case of a disabled child or a child with neurological disability, these things will be compromised. Okay, and the chief role of a pediatric physiotherapist is to make the child we cannot make the child to be as normal as we, but we can still make them near normal. That is the chief aim of a pediatric physiotherapist. Okay, so motor means movement. Sensory means, I'll be talking about 4 major sensations. One is visual, hearing, and proprioception, and tactile. Tactile means sense of touch. Okay? Proprioception means it's a sense of joint position. For example, everybody close your eyes. Please close your eyes. And can anyone explain in which position are you sitting? Can the man with the red hat, can you please explain in what position you're sitting right now?
I'm facing the front of the room at the speaker with my legs crossed, right leg over the left leg, back slouched, some of them like that.
Okay.
A little bit more right.
You did a very good job, okay? And this, you can open the eyes, okay? Thank you for the response. So this is what is joint position sense is about. But if you want a disabled child or a different special child to explain about his or her joint position, there comes a difficulty. They may not be able to explain in what position they are in, or their muscles and bones. Okay? Coordination. What is coordinated? Coordination. See, I can approach for an object, for example, ball like this. But a special child may not be able to reach for the ball in a normal way, because they will be having some movements like this, or they will be having some contractions like this, so that they have their own adapted way of reaching the ball. Okay, this is what is pediatric physiotherapy, like, or the pediatric disability. Okay, let's go to the presentation. So I'm Jayanti and Vijay Shankar is my husband's name. So I have put this slide first. This is called as a therapy ball and otherwise a gym ball. You could have seen in all the gym sections. This ball is very much useful for physiotherapists. We can make miracles using this ball. Okay. So pediatric physiotherapy is a branch of medical science which pertains to the treatment of children with limitations or disability. So we deal with children of various ages from birth. Immediately after birth, we start our work and it goes on, okay, towards life. Okay, so we are like lifetime people for them. We are just like parents, okay. And the physiotherapy will be like, it should not be like, I can't say a baby to just move like this or move like this because they have limitations. So I need to guide them, facilitate the movement, and I need to, their senses are not intact. They have difficulty in their sensations. So my touch plays a major role for them to understand what I really intend to do for them. Okay? So autism. So with this picture itself, you can very well understand, autism is like something different. Autistic children are living in a different world. The main aim of physiotherapy would be bringing them to our world, our environment, our people, our interaction, everything. So see, all the ducks are going in one way, but the autistic child will think in a different way. We need to understand what they really think, and we need to act accordingly to help them to get rehabilitated, to have a near normal life. It's a complex developmental disorder. It is not happening in between. It is a development disorder. So the symptoms will be shown only at the age of 6 months. Starting at the age of 6 months, we can see some early signs of autism. I'll be explaining about that later in my presentation. So the chief symptoms will be difficulty in social interaction, communication, and there will be some repetitive stereotyped movements. Like, let me explain, out of my experience, I've seen many autistic children. Anything that is new for the autistic child is very difficult to get adapted to. They cannot adapt to new environment. Okay? I have seen a child who can take a shower only with a white knicker. Without a white knicker, he cannot go for taking a shower. So it's like something attachment, some strange attachment to objects. Okay? I have seen a girl child who is very much attached with nuts, bolts, spanners, screwdrivers. Usually a girl child will be liking toys like Hello Kitty, Barbie, or cooking sets like that. But she is very much obsessed towards screwdrivers, nuts, bolts. And she has her own package of those things, and she will carry it everywhere she goes. And she is very much aware of what things are inside the pouch, and if any small thing is missing, then it's gone. The whole day is gone, and the mother is having a very difficult time finding it or making child understand how it missed. Okay, this is what the life of an autistic child. So they have repetitive stereotype movements. We call it as echolalia. Okay, to make it more, echolalia. This means repetitive words. If you ask a child, what is your name? The child repeats, what is your name? He doesn't know to answer. This is because for us to communicate, in the brain we have two centers. One is receptive center, another one is expressive center. We receive the words, we interpret it, the brain interprets, and it is expressed as language. But children with autism, their receptive power is okay, but they cannot interpret, the brain cannot interpret and can give a conversation back. So that's what is happening with the autistic children. So that is why they have echolalia. If you ask them what is your name, they say what is your name. Okay? And these are the points where a physiotherapist or an occupational therapist or a special educator should intervene to rehabilitate them. And one more thing is, autistic children, they don't know pragmatic skills. What are pragmatic skills? We know how to react with regards to the environment. So I'm walking like this. Now I can feel something is there on the ground, so I just pass along. But an autistic child may not be aware of this, just bumped on the objects and just go like this. So this is what is autism. So you'll be seeing inappropriate playing with toys. Example is, I've told about a girl baby who is very much interested with screws, nuts and bolts. Another is inability to relate to others. Others with regards to people as well as to the objects or the environment. Hyperactivity. Sometimes the child will be very much hyperactive or sometimes very passive. Okay? And sometimes inappropriate laughing and crying. Inappropriate. And have you ever seen children closing their ears for noise? I think everybody in your life would have seen children who are hypersensitive to noise. So that is one aspect of autism, but we may not say that it is an autistic feature, but still it is one aspect of autism. And because of their communication problem, reception and expression, it is happening in the brain, so they have difficulty in speech and communication also. So lack of awareness of danger, and they may not be able to say sorry or thank you for certain things, like if they bump on others, they just go. And imagine a group of people are talking, the autistic child just comes like this, in between. Okay, a normal person will not do that. Okay. So it is something great. It's always unique, totally interesting, sometimes mysterious. So it's a great deal for us to make, great deal for us to understand the autistic child. Rather than they understand us, it's a great task for us to understand them. Okay? They have some multiple special intelligence also. They are very good at many skills. So the aim of the physiotherapist or the occupational therapist or the special educator would be like understanding what their real interest and act accordingly. We have to design the treatment according to their interest. Okay? The next topic would be on attention deficit hyperactivity. The term itself is self-explanatory. The chief complaints would be attention deficits. We call it as inattentiveness. Hyperactive, including impulsivity, and these are the chief things about attention deficit hyperactivity. So it's the most common childhood disorder, and the exact cause is unknown. We may not know what is the real cause. Even scientists are still trying to understand what really makes a child hyperactive. And these days it's more prevalent. I don't know what really the reason is. They say that food additives, sometimes preservatives, sometimes snacks, or health drinks may also may also trigger hyperactivity in children. And especially all the neurological disorders prevailing in childhood would be a result of three major causes. One is prenatal causes, perinatal causes, and postnatal. The terms the meaning of these terms is prenatal is before delivery. Something happened to the mother or something which is genetic cannot be changed. Okay? That will tell upon the health of the yet to born baby. And one is perinatal causes. Perinatal means during the delivery something happens. Some accident happens during the delivery time. That would end up with a special child or a special baby. So next is postnatal. Postnatal means is post-delivery. After the delivery, in case if the child is low birth weight, then or they have a fall, a brain injury, a brain damage, a head injury, will end up in a problem like these. So hyperactivity, impulsiveness and inattentiveness are the chief complaints of ADHD. I have seen many children with ADHD. It's very difficult to make them sit in one place. So our first target is making them come to our session, make them sit in our cabin for some time. So the total treatment session would be like 30 minutes, but out of 30 minutes, the first 15 minutes would be like making them understand, make them sit in one place and make them do activities. Okay? So and they'll be always running. They are super energetic and they have difficulty in sleeping. They have a disturbed sleep. So they don't sleep peacefully because their mind is always active. We call it as there are certain substances called as neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters can be divided into excitatory and depressive, okay? So the excitatory neurotransmitters will be more for a ADHD child. So that it's always on go, okay? And they will never wait for their turn. You can't expect an ADHD child to stand in a queue, okay? And you cannot expect them to take turns, okay? So we have to act accordingly to make them understand what really is. So these are the major aspects or the major symptoms of ADHD: impulsivity, hyperactivity, inattentiveness, and they have very poor memory of the daily routines. Putting them into daily routines is very difficult, and you cannot expect a child with ADHD to be very much organized. They cannot be organized. Okay? Please don't scold them as mothers and fathers. We have to understand them. It's not a major disorder. It's a very common disorder. It can be corrected through proper intervention. Okay? And they are very much less motivated because they very well understand what the reason I couldn't do this. They feel very bad. Many times they feel very bad. Why I'm not able to do this? I have the motive. The child has the motive to do, but still he cannot. He or she cannot. And so what happens? This sense makes them less motivated, depressed, and stressed. Okay. So and acting without thinking and excessive talking. See, please don't. If a child is talking too much, we call them as chatterbox. But still, it may be an early sign of ADHD. And see, autistic child and ADHD children, they have immense strength in various fields. Okay, they are super intelligent. Actually speaking, they are super intelligent. Their IQ level is not poor. Of course, they are not poor. Only thing is, they have problems with communication, adapting to environment, and their own self. Okay. So strengths will be they will be more creative. They will be intelligent. They are very good at problem solving, and they are well determined. The only thing is, as the body and mind is not working in a balance, they cannot exhibit what they determine. So that's the reason they become less motivated, because they cannot do what they intend to. Okay? They are super energetic and eager to try new things, and they are very much hardworking and perseverant. Still, they are less motivated. It can sound controversy, but still, they are hardworking and perseverant, but they are still less motivated. So these are the weaknesses, what I said. So the next topic would be on cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is something to do with the brain. It's totally brain damage. Let me explain in the picture. It's a drawing. we have two half of brains, okay? Any neurological damage or damage to the brain cells cannot be reverted. It cannot be corrected, okay? The maximum time, brain cannot survive like 30 seconds if the blood supply is not happening to the brain, it's not going to the brain, it's not working, it stops working. The particular part stops working or it is going into damage, okay? So see, the main, imagine this is a part of the lesion in a brain. Lesion means it's a part of the damaged site. We can divide the surrounding areas into two. This is totally dead. You cannot touch or you cannot treat that, okay? But the surrounding area is still viable. You can still intervene, you can still activate the nerves through medications, through exercises and through interventions. So the chief aim of the physiotherapist is to target this area of the brain, okay? We need to choose the viable lesion site and we need to give more and more therapy and exercises to activate that particular site, and that's how we deal with children with neurological disabilities, okay? So cerebral palsy is a neurological disorder caused by a non-progressive brain injury. This happens with regards to the three reasons: prenatal, perinatal and postnatal. It's either before delivery or during the delivery or after delivery, okay? That is not progressive. See, autism and ADHD is developmental disorder. You can see if it does not intervene, it will progress. The symptoms will progress. But in case of cerebral palsy, the damage is damage. You'll be having the symptoms of what the damage is, okay? You'll be having its own symptoms. But still, the disease is not progressing, okay? If you see the image, cerebral palsy is like, the presentation would be either hemiplegia. Hemiplegia means one half of the body is inactive. The senses, the motor part, that is the movement part, is inactive. That is called as hemiplegia. Diplegia means there will be involvement of the four limbs, that is the two upper arm and the two lower limbs. But still, the lower limbs are more weak than the upper limbs. You could have seen children walking like this. You can see children walking like this, okay? Scissoring gait. This is called a scissoring gait. So this is typical diplegic gait, okay? And a hemiplegic gait would be, hemiplegic gait is like this. If the right side is inactive, so the child walks like this. This is hemiplegic way of walking. And quadriplegia, it's quite difficult because even if the lower limbs is not okay, we can still manage with the upper limbs, okay, with the hands. But in quadriplegia, the upper limbs is more affected than the lower limbs, okay. Still, all the four limbs are affected. The upper limbs are more affected than the lower limbs in case of quadriplegia. So they have difficulty doing their own activities of daily living and everything. So they need intervention in every part of their life, from sleeping to movement, okay? Another one is athetoid. Athetoid children will have difficulty only when a movement is initiated, okay? So if they want to walk, they know how to walk, the brain knows how to recruit the muscles, but they have difficulty. So they walk, their gait is like something incoordinated, okay? That is what, and they have some unusual movements also, athetoid movements. If they intend to do something, they have movements like this, okay? But in case of, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Dystonic. Have you ever come across people with abnormal jerky movements? Have you seen people always moving their head like this? This is a typical dystonic movement, okay, of the neck, head and neck. Or sometimes they cannot control. They should control like this, but still it moves. It's not they cannot because everything comes from brain. They don't have a coordinated movement. And ataxic is, you can compare ataxic with the movement of a drunkard. If you drink more alcohol, how your movement will be? It's like this, it's incoordinated. That is typical. You can very well understand what ataxia with regards to over drinking. Okay, being a full drunk, you cannot move properly. You cannot drive. The movements become very shaky and incoordinated. Yes. Yeah. The next topic for discussion would be muscular dystrophy. Muscular dystrophy is a very emotional thing for a pediatric physiotherapist because children with muscular dystrophy will not survive 14 years. After 14 years, it's very difficult for them to survive. It's really, there is no treatment. The research is still going on because it's a genetic disorder and it involves the longest gene. Okay, so it's very difficult for the scientists to locate which, they have located the site of the lesion in the genetic part aspect, but they don't know how to have a cure for the muscular dystrophy. It's quite actually, if a physiotherapist, like we whatever we do for the muscular dystrophy child, there will not be any prognosis or the improvement is very less. So we will become less motivated, but still we have to. So it's muscular dystrophy is a group of genetic diseases with muscle fibers unusually susceptible to damage. All the muscles in the body will go for damage and degeneration, and you cannot stop the degeneration. Okay, whatever you do, you cannot stop the degeneration. So that's what is happening with muscular dystrophy. And we have three major stages. We can divide the stages into, first is ambulation stage. The child walks, but it's kind of compensatory movements or compensatory kind of walk. I will show the pictures later in the slide. And the second will be wheelchair stage, and the third stage is bedridden. The bedridden stage, the child goes when the cardiac muscles, the heart muscles and the lung is getting disturbed. It's getting degenerated or it is getting damaged. Because it's a progressive disorder. Okay, there is no stop for that. So, and it's more prevalent, it's only with boys. It's not affecting the girls. The girls are only carriers of the gene, genetic material. The boys are the sufferers. So you cannot see muscular dystrophy not much in females. They are just carriers. So it's better. There are certain screening tests to avoid muscular dystrophy. Like when a woman is pregnant, they need to undergo some scan kind of thing, scanning. It's genetic scanning, through which if the baby or the unborn baby, yet to be born baby is having this problem, it's better to avoid the pregnancy. It's aborting pregnancy. That's always better. Because the females are carriers. If the baby is a boy, then he has muscular dystrophy. If the baby is a girl, she will be carrying that to the society, you know. She gets older, she gets married, and that gene, after marriage, that gene is gone to the next family. So it's better if muscular dystrophy is prevented. It can be prevented. It can be avoided only through prenatal scannings. So if a woman, pregnant woman, is screened to have a fetus with muscular dystrophy defective gene, it's better to not proceed with the pregnancy. Okay? I think this is a good information. This is how the muscular dystrophy child look like. All the muscles goes for weakening. So we have a very compensatory posture. Okay? Later, see they have very weak belly muscles. We stand erect. Okay? Because all the muscles work in a proper fashion. If my back muscles are working more, I'll be like this. Okay? If my front muscles are working more, I'll be like this. So there should be an equal balance in order to have a proper stature or posture. Okay? Because of muscle weakness, they have this kind of a posture. They always walk with the toes like this, and like this. Their belly will be protruded. Okay? And this is how, this is an important sign with regards to muscular dystrophy. It is called as a Gower sign. A child with muscular dystrophy always stands in this fashion. Okay? First with 4 legs, then because they have a weak knee, front thigh muscles, they bend like this, and then crawling up their own body, they come to erect standing. But still they cannot stand erect. Okay? Can everyone understand? Yeah. The next topic is Down syndrome. Down syndrome is much related with intelligent quotient, that is mental retardation. The children with, I've seen a patient at age 31, he was 31, and he had the mentality of a 6-year to 7-year-old child only. So there comes the difference. Okay? Even though you get older, your brain is not getting older. It still remains the same in the childhood, between 6 and 7 years. Okay? That's the. This is what is happening with the genetic aspect of Down syndrome. So these are called as the chromosomes. I think everybody have come across this word chromosome. The problem is, these are arranged in pairs. These are normal. We have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Here you have an extra copy, and this extra copy tells upon the symptoms of Down syndrome. Okay? You can very well identify a child with Down syndrome with the faces. Okay? The distance between these two eyebrows will be large, and the distance between the first toe and the second toe is enlarged. They have balance compromise. They cannot walk in a balanced fashion, and the eyes will be like we can say more of a Mongolian kind of a face. Okay, the tongue is protruded, and they have a flat occiput, and the hair is blonde, more blonde and straight, and they have a flat face and simian hand. You know, they have a extra palmar crease. We have this, these we call it as crease. They have an extra palmar crease with like simian. Simian means like monkeys. Okay. So these are the chief features of Down syndrome. The next topic I would like to explain about is sensory processing disorder. This is quite interesting because everyone, in any point of time, we have certain kinds of sensory processing disorders. This is like, have you ever experienced checking our own purse every time? Like, whether we have this, we check many times. That's a kind of obsession. And have you ever come across like, getting into a roller coaster is not for me? Okay, something like that. I can't imagine sitting on a roller coaster. Okay? And sometimes motion sickness. You can't travel for a long time, you have vomiting, nausea, something like that. That is also, if not it is motion sickness, it is with regards to the balance system of the brain. Okay? Some people will be over-responding to some sensations or under-responsive to some sensation. If they are over-responding, they will avoid those sensations. If they are under-responding, they will seek the sensations. Many people will like soft textures. Many people will like to touch soft sensations, soft textures. Okay? This is like they seek for that sensation, for particular sensation. They feel better only after that. Okay? So that is what is sensory processing disorder. There are certain sensations will be over-responding or certain sensations to which we will be under-responsive. Okay? This is the important part of my talk. It is about rehabilitation, how a physiotherapist deals with these kind of disabilities. I would like to call my volunteer to just demonstrate what really is physiotherapy, how we deal with children with disabilities. So, this is what we do. This is called as facilitation. I want my client to use her back muscles to recruit her back muscles. So if I give a forward weight shift, she avoids falling by using her back muscles. Can you feel the muscles of your back getting tightened? Yes. Especially your leg muscles, your back of thigh muscles. Yes. Yeah. So we treat children with giving this kind of facilitation, weight shift. If I want to activate the back of my child's muscles, I have to make a forward weight shift like this. Automatically the muscle works. With that, I treat the brain. I teach the brain how to use it. Okay? And now, so she's not falling, okay, because she's using, her muscles are intact, so she's using this side of the muscle, okay, to make herself erect. So when it comes to children with disability, they may not be able to do this, but still we try. Repetition. Every time we do this, the muscles tends to, I'm targeting this area of the brain. I have this one as an option for me to get them corrected. So I'm targeting that region of the brain. Those cells are still viable. I'm just activating it. Through practice, through doing it many times, I'm activating it. Okay? Thank you. And I want you to understand what really is reflex. We always, physiotherapists, we are much attached to reflexes because we always stimulate the reflexes through which we get movements. Okay? I'm just throwing it. This is what the reflex is. Motor relearning. They are relearning. I'm teaching them the known movements. They know all the movements, but suddenly they have a block in the brain, blood vessel of the brain, they get paralysis, and a physiotherapist is going to teach them their known movements. But in case of pediatric physiotherapy, I need to teach the brain how to move, how to make the muscles move. I'm targeting the brain. So it is motor learning. But in case of adult adult physiotherapy, neurophysiotherapy, it is motor relearning. I'm just remembering the movements of them, okay? So these are certain approaches what we use in pediatric physiotherapy. The chief is neurodevelopmental therapy. It is otherwise called as Bobak approach. And another thing is proprioceptive neurofacilitation technique. Constraint-induced therapy is very interesting. See, if a child has the right side affected, okay, I constrain the movement in the left side and get loose the right side so that I give treatment only with using the right side. The problem is itself in the right side, but I still want this to be constrained. The normal part is constrained, the right side starts moving automatically if I give a task. I'll constrain the normal side, but I want my child to take this object. So there is no other way. She or he must use only the right side. Is everyone clear about constraint-induced therapy? Yes. And we have Roots approach. In Roots approach, we use various sensations, soft touch, crude touch, hard textures. With regards to textures, we stimulate the sensory nerves in order to get the motor response or to get the movement. We give various sensations to get the movement. Okay? So motor relearning, sensory re-education, equilibrium balance training, gait training, and massages are the chief things what a physiotherapy really do. So treatment protocol would be, first thing, I'll be assessing the limitations and the presenting things, what the child can do and what the child cannot do. With this, first will be the assessment, that is sensory and the motor assessment. Next will be abilities and limitations. Then I will be having my treatment plan. Treatment plan, we have two things, short-term goal and long-term goal. Short-term goal would be like, in 3 months, what should I achieve or what should I expect from the child? And long-term goal is 6 months. Okay, it's like this. It's goal setting and a home exercise program. Of course, everything must be revised in case of pediatric physiotherapy. So we train the parents, teachers and their siblings, everybody to help the child to get into the therapy sessions. I mean, we should have a follow-up and reassessment and definitely documentation. Without documentation, physiotherapy, pediatric physiotherapy is useless. Okay? Yes. So this is the rehabilitation team. Doctors, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, and orthotics, prosthetics. You know, orthotics and prosthetics, they work with special aids, wheelchairs, okay, splints, and sometimes artificial limbs if needed in case of orthopedic. So it's a teamwork. It's perfectly teamwork. Okay. So these are the important role of pediatric physiotherapy. Balance training, postural training, activities of daily living. In everything, intervention of a pediatric physiotherapist is very much needed. This is a typical example of a pediatric physiotherapy room. We have a lot of swings in order to balance training. Okay. And this is called as a therapy ball. And with this position is weight bearing. If the child arm is weight beared, okay, it gets a lot of proprioceptive senses, joint position sense. Okay. And the therapist is trying to activate the right side of the baby. So the left side is constrained and the right side is working. Okay. So this is called as a bolster. So with this bolster we can shift weight. Forward weight shifts, backward weight shifts, and the sideways. Okay, with that we can help the muscle. The physiotherapist knows which muscle to be recruited for a particular movement to happen. So for these things we use these assistive devices. We call it as assistive devices. The swings, the bolsters, the balls and everything. So you can very well, if you enter a pediatric physiotherapy room, you will be seeing all these stuffs. Okay? And also in order to enhance balance, we have trampolines, okay, in the physiotherapy room. And this is called as a flexion disc swing. Okay, this child may be under-responsive. So under-responsive to swinging sensation, movement sensation. So they are getting trained in a swing like this. If the child is over-responsive to movement, but still we need to make them go in a swing, right? Or like, so that is the reason we put children in swings like this and treat them. Okay? So sitting on a swing, even if the child doesn't able to work his arms, in order to protect herself, we should hug. So that facilitates a movement. Can everyone understand? Yes? So it's always like together, it's like playing. We have to be involved. Physiotherapist can't sit in a chair and treat the child, just like a doctor. Yeah, the doctor just writes prescription, okay, or the surgeon just works in the operation theatre. But here it's all one-on-one session, total interaction. We have to be in their world, yes. So even sometimes I'll be rolling on the floor in my clinic. That's a very usual thing what happens in a physiotherapy room with the patient. And these are called as rollators. These are helpful in ambulation training, gait training, how to walk. These are certain assistive devices. Assistive devices plays major role in pediatric physiotherapy.
Oh, how that tools for amputation.
Yes. That's all. Thank you. And let me